Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will be starting in about a minute. So just a 1 minute warning before we begin. Thank you. Gentlemen, I hope everybody is, I would sincerely like to welcome you to the GIBS problem-solving methodology sessions. My name is Amber Williams. I will be your moderator for this evening. I am from Empire Partner Foundation, and we'd just like to welcome you all to this critical dialogue hosted by GIBS in partnership with Empire Partner Foundation and Ferguson Media. Thank you for joining us as we tackle one of South Africa's most pressing challenges: water scarcity, resource management, and future planning in South Africa. Before we get started on this evening's session, I'd just like to extend a very special thank you to our collaborators, EPF's visionary work that they're doing empowering the youth, Ferguson Media for amplifying these urgent conversations and important voices within this space, and the GIBS Business Institute, who then comes with the academics and the research to help further these conversations into policies and actionable change. So let us start with creating a bit of context and looking what is the context and the purpose of today's session. So as part of a broader problem-solving methodology, this being our second session within the series, we have a consortium-style driven approach to address the systemic challenges through innovation, cross-sector collaboration, and actionable strategies. This is why we have brought together business, government, academia, and civil society, the four pillars that our society is built and maintained on, in order to come together and look at practical ways of solving critical challenges. You may ask, why water? South Africa is a water-scarce nation grappling with climate shocks, aging infrastructure, pollution, and inequitable access to water. So without urgent access and action, this crisis is only going to deepen poverty, health risks, and economic instability within our nation. That is why it is so important for us to come together and find a method to solve this before this very tragic reality comes to pass. I would like to introduce our panelists. With us, we have Dr. Furiel Adam. She is the Executive Manager of WaterCan. Mr. Nathan Marimutu, the founder of the Empire Partner Foundation ecosystem. Luba Luyaba, the Principal Engineer for Water and Sanitation from the South African Local Government Association. And joining us online, we will have Tiani Chau, the Deputy Director of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Each panelist will share insights from between 7 and 10 minutes on the current state of the water crisis within South Africa and their unique interests from both a business, civil society, and government perspective. I would like to hand over to Dr. Furiel to introduce WaterCan and give us a little bit more about this very pressing matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to stand or?
No, please. You're more than welcome to be comfortable. Sit.
So, good evening, everyone. In terms of my brief, I looked specifically at what WaterCan does, but I just want to touch a little bit on the state of our water and sanitation in South Africa. Just if I can add a little bit more. In general, our water resources are under immense pressure. And if we look at the quantity of our water, I think you've mentioned, Amber, that we are a water scarce country. But not only that, it's also, if you look at quantity, you've got to look at access. And there are still millions and millions of South Africans who do not have proper access to safe drinking water, but also at least 9, and I think right now it should be more, 10% of our population rely on rivers and streams for their complete supply of water. And if you know the quality of our rivers, you would know that that is almost sending them to have an unhealthy lifestyle. In terms of, and that brings me to the quality of our water. We've got pollution from all sides. There's agricultural pollution, there's mining pollution, there is sewage pollution, which is one of our biggest challenges right now. And there's this statistic I always mention, which is there's 50,000 liters of water that is of sewage that's flowing into our rivers and streams per second. Not per day, per second. So our river ecosystems are not in a good state. And we forget that we are part of the environment, that we are the environment. So when your river ecosystems, at least 60% of our river ecosystems are threatened, our livelihoods and lives are threatened. We have climate change, and we tend to talk about climate change as if it's a side issue, like I'm ticking the box, yes, climate change. We are living the impacts of climate change. More and more, we have to deal with either drought, floods, and UNICEF did a study that showed that 74% of the impacts that we were feeling in the world was around water. And that is why climate change and water are so intricately linked, and so is food. And then, of course, we have something that in South Africa has become a challenge, which is our failing infrastructure. Everywhere you look, it is a national challenge. So for people who want to move to Cape Town, sorry for you, it is a national challenge. From Joburg, name the province and I will give you an exact issue that's going on in that particular province. Western Cape has challenges with their sewage and their wastewater treatment works. Nelson Mandela Bay, Eastern Cape, Free State, Northern Cape, Northwest, Gauteng, it's all being affected in terms of our infrastructure, whether it is your wastewater treatment works or your drinking water supplies. And then, of course, we cannot deny that there's corruption. And corruption is feeding the water mafia, whether they are water tanks, tanker mafias. There are even things called community business forums. I work with a group in KZN. They clean a river. That's what they do. They clean a river. They're doing nothing. They're harming no one. They clean a river. They got stipends to clean a river. The community business forum called them in, women, put them into this little room, surrounded by men, saying, you will no longer clean this room. We've been allowing you to clean the river. If you want to continue, you've got to pay us. What happened? That group stopped going there. So those are the kinds of things we have to deal with. In a nutshell, in figures, and I'm getting to my 7 minutes, 46% of our water supply systems in South Africa cannot be consumed. I drink the water in the city of Joburg and I think it's good. But when I venture out, I get nervous. I do not drink water in other parts of the country. 67% of our wastewater treatment works are poor to critical. I wish I had a presentation to show you the amount of pollution in our rivers. And that is the rivers that 10% of our population is relying on. It directly affects health. I did a presentation, a training on our water testing kit, which is what we're trying to do in KZN, to young high school students, girls, it was only girls. It was an auditorium very much like this. And I was talking about the testing kit and how to test water, and I had a hand raised up and the person said, "Miss, what do we do if we don't have water?" 25% of our schools do not have running water. 46% of our clinics do not have running water. These young women told me that when they menstruate, they do not go to school. They also get, in some of the areas, you know when you get your stationery list in the beginning of the year? Parents are told to send their children to school with water. That is where we are. When you want to talk state of water resources in the country, you've got to bring it down to see how real the issues are. So what are we doing? We're creating a network. Sorry, can I stand? The sitting doesn't work for me.
You're more than welcome.
And I need to stand here, not by the podium, because then you can't see me, I'm short. What we're doing is we are building a network of what we call citizen science activists. We have a testing kit that we get to people. They can test their water, their drinking water, whether it's a tap or a river, a dam, wetland, whatever they're using, and it gives them a few parameters. They can test their chemical parameters. So, and we give training on understanding why you're testing for phosphate, why you're testing for pH. And then we have a bacterial test that tells them if there's E. coli in their water. That's the testing kit we have. We have registered with us about 1,500 people. Not all of them are testing. They test and then they stop and then they test. But consistently, we have communities around the country that are testing water. Last month, for World Water Day, we ran a campaign with 80 schools. And the reason it was 80 schools is because we didn't have the funding to go wild. We had to limit it, which was really disappointing to people who wanted to participate. 80 schools, 5 provinces, where people tested their water. We are now analyzing the results, and we will be looking at and sharing that publicly when we get it. So that's what we do. We test water, and then we also train people that, so what, you test water, you know your water's dirty, then what? How do you take it forward? How do you engage with your counselor? Don't go and just burn the tire or bang his door down or shout at him on WhatsApp, because that's what happens, right? How do you engage your counselors to become part of the solution? So we work with that. Then if that doesn't work, and trust me, there are many parts of the country where municipalities just don't listen to people. So we call on the media. And we've had a case like this in KZN as well, where a community did not have running water in their taps for 2 years. They then said people were getting sick. So they were relying on a river. We sent testing kits through an organization, The Right to Know, to help them test their water. Their water was completely polluted. And if people don't know, that's when they're going to drink water and get cholera, because you know with sewage you're going to get all kinds of other pathogens, right? It's not just E. coli in sewage. The media was informed. It was on the news. Within 2 days of it being on the news, there were water tanks in that community for the first time in 2 years. After about 3 weeks, the taps were running again. But if you don't have active citizens on the ground, you have to keep monitoring. 3 weeks later, again, the water was gone. So people go back to the rivers. And that's the challenge. We have to build active citizens at a grassroots level. So one of the other things we do in urban areas is we get people to report, because we need to stop wasting water. We waste at least 47.4% of our water is regarded as non-revenue water. In Joburg, 25% of our water is being lost through leaks. 25%, and we pay for it, right? Because they buy it from Rand Water, but it's lost immediately through leaks. So we get people like yourselves to monitor the leaks, report the leaks. We're trying to get people to be active citizens and not lose hope. Because what we find is people's like, nothing's going to happen, so why must I even bother? You have to keep reporting, because there are organizations, there are activists that need you to give a reference number so we can follow up. And that's what we do. We report leaks, report the sewage manholes, overflowing manholes. And by the way, that is another complex situation. Joburg Water has found baby fetuses in pipes that were blocked, dead bodies, even a blanket. How they got the blanket down the toilet, I don't know, but it was there. I was told it was because it was near prison, so they do that to block the toilets and then create a little bit of chaos. The other thing is we are finding more and more no water supply. And in different areas. Before, it was a lot of the lower income areas were being very hard hit. They were living with this for years. It's now come through to the urban areas, and it's affecting everybody. So this is something we're also getting people to report. Education and awareness is key. There are so many people that don't understand how bad our water situation is and how important it is to save. We must not save only when we don't have. We have to save now when we do have. We have to increase our advocacy, and these are all the kind of things we're doing to create the awareness. And when I say advocacy, yes, we're activists, and yes, I do protest, but we also believe in engaging. So we will be on the Department of Water and Sanitation has a Gauteng provincial water security group, as well as, if you've followed the news on water, the president about 2 months ago, he came in and said water is going to be a focus area in Joburg. And we have set up, well, they have set up a presidential committee on water, and we are part of that as civil society. But that doesn't mean we must go into those committees and those meetings and forget while we're there, because that happens often. We need to keep challenging. We need to keep them on their toes. It's because of active citizens that these kind of committees are happening. And then, of course, there's a role for everyone, and I'm almost done. There's a role for everyone. At a household level, we can save water. But I have to say this. We have to start thinking about new ideas of how we are going to be dealing with water and our relationship with water. Is it okay for a whole suburb, for every household to have a swimming pool? In a country that is water scarce and we're running short of water, we have to rethink that kind of behavior. In terms of youth, we need to get youth fired up and motivated to save water and to become water warriors. We don't have enough. In terms of farmers, how do we change from big scale farming to smaller scale farming, decentralized and using smarter ways of agriculture? The same goes for industries. Industries can be sometimes the leaders in many of what we're doing. We have chemicals that are banned in Europe, but we're using it here. Why? And all of these things are causing cancers, it's causing illnesses, and we're not questioning why those numbers are increasing. And then for everyone in society to play a role of saving water, watching, monitoring, and building that active citizenry. You don't have to be part of an NGO or civil society to be an activist to promote the well-being of our water. Because if we don't do it now, water is soon becoming a privilege for just a few. When I was young, and now I'm showing my age, when I was young, there was talk about bottled water, and I thought it was the most ridiculous thing. I was just finishing high school, and now it's the norm. How did that happen? We have to stop these things from happening before it gets any worse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And thank you for that snapshot of the current water status and the state of our rivers, the ecosystem, and how climate change is affecting the water scarcity and resource management in South Africa. I think something very poignant and important that you said was looking after our own natural resources, or our own natural sources of water that we have, protecting our rivers, protecting those natural sources. But I think something also important to remember in that is to protect the commercialization of water resources. I was reading a very interesting article on the debate of whether or not access to water is a global human right. And Nestle were actively against bringing about this or implementing this human right, because they had bought up a lot of the natural springs and water sources around the world, which preempts the water wars that you touched on. And I think another very interesting point was accountability and taking ownership as a citizen. At least in my experience, South Africans, we love a savior, and we want somebody else to do the work and come and save us and give us a system that's perfect without having to be active participants in bringing it about. So I think when you speak about the youth and getting them involved in us taking accountability on being water wise and not wasting from a domestic personal usage, I think that does contribute quite largely. You know, it's very easy to point the finger, but when we don't have water at home, you actually see how much water do I use in my bathtub or every flush of my toilet, for example. So thank you so much for highlighting that. And I think with speaking on youth, we'll hand over to Mr. Nathan Marimutu from Empire Partner Foundation. And Empire Partner Foundation has been making some amazing strides using technology and the innovation of the youth to solve these challenges. I know that there are quite a few solutions that have come out of the artificial intelligence campus from EPF, being your Internet of Things sensors to monitor water flow, AR and VR training, to help manage resources, your non-revenue water projects with Salga to monitor that, as well as your data analytics, etc. So I would just love for if Mr. Marimutu can give us a little bit more insights as to how technology fits in and into the state of water and what we can do with the youth.
No, thank you. Maybe I think it is sometimes it's great when you hear other panelists speak about the current state of the country. But before I tell you what we were doing as EPF, I just want to make you aware of something that's we tend to forget every day. And the story goes back to COVID. My offices are next door at 35 Ferguson, so we're not far from GIBS. And I received a call from one of the committees looking at COVID. And they were trying to work out where the risk deltas will fly, you know, which is the highest and lowest. And I then reminded this committee that we have 5,000 informal settlements in South Africa, which accommodates 7 million people. And that means we have, on average, 14 million or 21 million unsanitized events a day for sanitation. And they don't have access to clean water. So I said, is it COVID or the resource that's important? Because we were passing regulations that were not considering those facts. Those 5,000 informal settlements today are about 7,000 informal settlements. So whilst we live in suburbia or developing cities, I guess wherever you drive in the country, you find a little bit of informal settlements coming up. And we won't delve into why they exist, but there's a factual component around it. that an informal settlement means that a child is born in this informal settlement that's never going to have access to clean water or sanitation. There's lots of horrible perils that are associated with it, from GBV and rape of young women, and one can go on. I'm not here to depress you, but so when you look at just water, this is a scarce resource, or sanitation. My heart, because I'm an activist, I have to go to those that are most desperate in society. And we have this booming problem that we don't seem to, it's there, but it's something that we want to look away from. So I just wanted to bring you to attention that there are some glaring facts that sometimes we tend to forget, But when we set up Empire Partner Foundation, it's a challenge sometimes to try to explain what we do. Midday today, at about 11 o'clock, I was in a meeting and somebody says, what does this EPF do, And I guess to put it in a simple way, we're a group of people. It's an NPO that in 2014 or 2015 came to the realization that we have a lot of problems in South Africa, and the majority of the discourse is complaining about the problem. And we didn't find many people trying to solve it. So I reached out to as many people as possible and said, is it a good idea if we could set up a foundation that actually tries to solve problems? And we said what our contribution will be, which we use this emerging technology that's coming in the world, equip young South Africans that can use this technology, a majority of them who don't really have a job or have an opportunity rather, and go and solve public sector issues. So that's what EPF is about. It's an organization, it's not owned by anybody because it's an NPO. And I'm not even a trustee or director, I'm just only the founder, but I try to worry them every day, So my problem is I work 7 days a week, you see. So I have the advantage of worrying people when I don't sit on the committees. And we said, let's take all these public sector issues and see if we can solve them. We chose 10 of them. And we had a bunch of young students that actually both were from university to say, what do you think must be solved for you? And they came up with these 10 issues. Water is one of those key issues, and sanitation. And then we said we will take technology, we will equip these youngsters to try and solve it. It's all we do. So that's, I think, to be understood better. We're a problem-solving organization. We're very grateful to GIBS. I think the GIBS team is here, and I'm indebted to them because, and Ferguson Media, a couple of months ago, we had a discussion with GIBS to say, can we have these fora that actually is going to find a problem-solving methodology? Because if you look at the number of problems that we hear about every day, they're ever escalating. And it concerns me that I would rather spend the rest of my life or encouraging other people to rather focus on solving something, like what you are doing and many other people are doing. That's what we are focusing about. We've managed to break ground in many areas, but when it comes to water, just to show you the type of challenges we are faced with, water is very regulated. I want you to understand that. It's not a free resource. The state regulates water. It's the final custodian over the water usage in South Africa. It's from a stream, it's from the sky, it's from any other source, it's controlled. And there are water use agreements, there are water service providers, there are water authorities, and I think every municipality now is a quasi-water authority. I stand to be corrected, some sort of deregulation to increase the amount of players in it. So it's a state responsibility to regulate water. And what we found out in our research over the last 5 or 7 years, typically is that there's a lot of goodwill to fix this issue, but what misses is the collective database. And today, if you wanted to have a single portal to say what is the state of water, it's hard to find a single portal that will show us unified data. So in the foundation, when we looked at these 10 issues, we are building research capacity, and we started to solve section by section by section. We have invested in technologies with partnerships with universities and many other sort of partners to solve them. But our concern on water was having critical live data. So you speak about the challenges, Furiel, about in the number of areas, municipalities, but this institutional knowledge lies within a set of people, or the data could be there, but it's not available for us to solve it. There are some examples that we've made great progress with out of the 10 issues. And we're only making this progress because we, as a partner organization, work with many stakeholders. And we can tell you a little bit more about them. But this sessions was actually designed to say, the last one we had was food safety, and I think we made great progress. I'm working with that team. You will see some announcements. And very soon that we will have a national portal that will be able to look at how to rectify food safety. For the issue of water, our contribution as the foundation was to work with the stakeholders and build a data portal that we are capable of doing that will allow us to actually solve it. Because the attempts that you are making is obviated, for example, by these business forums. That means regulation is failing, the police should be there. And so now where a community benefits, they just benefit because of some poor management of regulation. But I'll leave you with a few highlights of what we wanted to achieve with the session. I'm not an expert in water. What I do know is that when we've been researching water for the last 8 years, both from the national department, provincial and local, we do not know the actual usage of water. Let's start at the end of it to say how much of water is being used, how much of water is being wasted, and we can't regress that back to the source of water. There is bulk water from municipalities. There are large water providers. Yes, water will get lost because the infrastructure is old. The municipality will say we don't have money for the infrastructure. And this is a never-ending fight. But we realize that there are mechanisms in which to detect it and solve it. We have one of the companies that we supported was a young company from the Cape Flats in Cape Town. A remarkable story. He wanted to calculate how much water corporates use, you know. I don't want to mention the name to promote the company. Went on to build some really cool innovation. And today is almost, I think, a global organization. And the data they're producing is very valuable. It works, it's live data, and global organizations. Pepsi Cola, for example, we show them how to use the effluent back into their system, and they recover 50% of that water back, the wastewater. I can name many large organizations. So it's possible, our people are talented. So that's what the foundation does, it gives us this. Another organization has built a water quality device that now you throw it into something for you, and it'll give us almost a remote reading for water quality. We've done a global deal with Total to help. It's a foundational model. And Total is using it in Uganda today. So probably in Uganda is the same issue for water. There's not much testing, and these are displaced communities. So I think South Africans have a lot to offer, you know, but it's in collaboration with many, many people. The essence of today, Amber, I think, was for us to work with GIBS and other organizations to find an answer to say, you know, how do we solve this issue? Our proposal, I think, is to offer a platform that we're willing to co-sponsor, to such have a shared data, have these various inputs, so we can start to solve them, you know. And we are doing this. I mean, the challenge is that if you look at the VAL, we have to open the sluice gates. Then there's the issue of flooding of villages. So we don't have information that makes us prepared, you know. And it's possible to do this. We have many solutions. So I think, you know, without taking the floor, our offer is to be a very open organization. We have a lot of young students working with us now. In the last 6 months, I think many young students from various campuses have approached us and said, look, can we volunteer our time? So what I found very surprising, there are many South Africans now saying, both from a PhD level down to masters and grads, saying, listen, can we give you 5 hours a week or 5 hours a month? And that's remarkable. Which means that when people see some sort of organized format, they're willing to contribute. So I think to answer your question, if we are a little bit better organized, we can get it. But should we bother the state? It's a question that I think you've raised. The state is a regulatory authority. I think it's limited in its capacity. We need to figure out other ways, because we are the users of water, to be responsible to figure out how we start solving issues. Yes, we cannot be the municipality or the national department, but I think if users were much more organized, in a cooperative sense, you could achieve much, much more. Water is for industrial use, water is for farming. In the Western Cape, for example, there was a provincial law passed that all farmers must report how much water consumption they use. it doesn't really happen, farmers don't want to be accountable at times, I guess they have some story about, but today it means that if all the farmers reported how much water we use, you'll have a sense of it, because these rivers flow, If you take, there are many issues of where illegal water is being utilized. I think others will talk about it. So we're not worried about the problems. I think we are very focused on saying if we could solve something, that's the clarion call. And I think we must leave these organizations where these sessions, the effort by GIBS to host us ourselves, talking to experts, even your attendees, is to live with the view that we can actually formulate something. Like I said, for food safety security, I'm proud to say it was very, very good. It allowed us to have larger interaction. And I think we'll make a meaningful contribution. And that's something GIBS can be proud of, to now maybe develop further courses around these things, for knowledge-based. For water, it's something that we've arrived today to say, these are all the problems. But we must live collectively in some form or the other to say we've built something that will take us forward. And that's been, I think, the mantra of the foundation. I feel sorry for my team because it's the hardest thing for them to do. And I'm a very hard person. They have their own CEO, but I'm always asking them, how are we actually solving issues? And if we're solving it, who can evidence it? We can't evidence our own solutions. And all these solutions are worked in partnership. So there are many, many successes we've had, but many challenges. The partnership, in conclusion, with GIBS was, we knew GIBS, because it's an academic business school, it's very innovative. Partnering with them meant we're down the road, we could work with something in the area and solve many, many issues. So I think that's really my view, is that, do we have enough data on water? And is it credible data? Is it verifiable data? And my answer says to me, from the last 2 or 3 years of research, the answer is no, because it's sporadic data. There are different sources of data. So we need to arrive at a point when we have one data set, which is really is owned by the society, that allows us to make decisions. And it allows for ideas or attempts to solve them. But in the absence of a unified data platform, which is an open portal, like Facebook for those who use it, or WhatsApp, we need to have those type of thinkings to court, because your efforts get wasted after a while. Like you said, you do X and somebody destroys it. So we need to figure out this transparent data format. And water is a national resource, so it's not a secret, There's no IP around water, and no one's stealing my ideas. I think the last part was education. Who knows how much water a washing machine uses? It's directed to men also. It's not just women. So I want to just show you a simple example. We've all used the washing machine, right? I guess for convenience. But very few of us ask us how many liters this uses, right? Go and find out that answer. It's not to be answered here. You might realize how inefficient we've become. So that's, we do that because we've been measuring and we've been testing for a while in some vicinities. And when we figure out how much water a washing machine uses, wow, forget the power consumption, just the water. You realize that bucket system does work with your hands, But I mean, it's not, we take it for granted, So there's a lot of things that I think we are not aware from a knowledge-based area. And water is a scarce resource. So that's why I asked the simplest question for urban society, I guess all of us have some access to a washing machine, or a laundromat. So that basic level we don't do. So I think from my side, I think that's really, we're encouraged by GIBS, we're encouraged by the panelists. So our contribution is say, let's invest in some open portals to collect the data, because we don't have data. I think South Africa is just one challenge we have. So that's what I'd like to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you've raised two extraordinarily important topics here, and the first of which is data. As we move more and more into a digital age, I think data is the new currency, and it especially is so important when it comes to future planning, as part of this session's title, in that how do we plan if we don't know what we're planning for or what the current status quo is? So we have an idea of what our challenges are, but it feels, as Nathan mentioned, quite fragmented in the information that we have around it. And that's not enough to actually drive a plan or create a roadmap to solve it. And I think water education, is quite important as well, because as you mentioned, Dr. Furiel, most of these statistics I personally did not know. And I'm sure that many others in the room or online feel the same way, and they're out there. But we aren't perhaps motivated to go and look for that. Perhaps it's, as you said, media brings the exposure and it amplifies the voices of these challenges. But I think it should also equally be used to amplify the solutions and the opportunities, the technology, or the collaborations that could then solve this. And I think that's why these sessions are so key, because every sector is a custodian of vital data that would then create that comprehensive view of what is currently happening with water in South Africa. And I think here's a good point to bring in Luba Luyaba from Salga, principal engineer. We have definitely laid a few accusations at the municipality's feet, and I think sometimes it is unfair, because as public servants, a lot of times we inherit, or you inherit infrastructures, you inherit challenges and problems that you're expected to solve immediately. So we would love to have some further insight from you on local governments' experience within the water challenges in South Africa.
Yeah, I think it's after hours, so I'm not going to be defensive. I think
we appreciate you for that.
we look, we've got a problem. And one thing I like that Furiel mentioned is people must not lose hope. I think the privilege I have in my job is I get to see all 144 water service authorities and see what's happening. And I think the big, and you sort of alluded to it, a big thing that we forget is that these are people. Councillors are people with hopes, aspirations. Municipal officials are people. And I'm not saying let's not hold people accountable, but I think we've started to create a dynamic where no one wants to work in local government. And when we as a society, in holding local government accountable, create an environment where it's not attractive, I don't know if we're going to have the types of institutions that can get us out of where we are. And technically, to be difficult, the Systems Act defines a municipality as council, community, and administration. So I always find it interesting when people say the municipality and they remove themselves. We're going in November next year to local government elections 2026. As Joburg residents, we're all equally eligible to go and stand, but we won't. And I think at the time where we are holding our councillors accountable correctly, we sometimes lack compassion and understanding that we're dealing with people first and foremost. So the biggest epidemic I've experienced personally is discouragement. I was in the Northern Cape and very frustrated. Guys, you've not done this. This sewer is spilling into... And the guy just calmly says, my man, I've not been paid for 3 months. If I could, I would quit my job and sit at home, but there's nothing else. And so when we fly our correct figures and numbers, we forget that at the end of those, there's people. And up until those people believe in what they're doing, want to be in the institutions that they should be, and you can't say they're getting paid, a lot of them aren't. We take it very lightly, right? When we see these letters flying around that, oh, this municipality is not paying salaries, that municipality is not paying salaries, that's a mother, that's a father, that's a young professional. So as Salga, a big thing we've been looking at is this aspect of people and saying if a municipality, until we change it, is the community, the administration and council, how do we rebuild trust between those three such that they can work together meaningfully and each of them plays their role? Because the very easy thing is to throw stones and demonize the other. And yes, administrations have done horrible things, councils have not performed as they ought, but highlighting the problem isn't going to solve it. And I think we can do both, right? We can hold government, local government in particular, accountable, but also treat each other with dignity and respect, recognizing that we're dealing with people at the end of the day. The technical solutions are super easy. those things, I mean, I'm an engineer, they're straightforward. I would love my problems to be engineering, but they're not. It's people not rightly, out of frustration saying, I'm not going to pay anymore because I haven't been getting the service. And when the money is not in the kitty, the municipality can't render the service. So which one do we fix first? So we have a wonderful opportunity coming up with the white paper on local government that's out. That says, is this thing working? And I think it's a beautiful is emotional language. It's a great opportunity for us to rethink the system that we've got and constructively contribute to designing a local government that we can all believe in and want to be part of, and that can actually service us. So yeah, I think maybe another thing, we are now in year 4 or 5 of local government. We realize that we made a mistake. Again, I'm not saying councillors haven't done bad things, but imagine you come into a job, there are no qualification requirements. You get a half-day induction, spend for yourself. The 17 billion rands that Joburg Water gets, or the city of Joburg gets from water and sanitation, you must approve bylaws, you must approve loans, you must set tariffs. How do we expect you to succeed? Yet for professionals, we've got something called continued or continuous professional development. So one of the things we're working with with the department going forward is to say, looking at our constitution and the legal mandate and power that councillors have, do we really provide them with the support that those who want to do the right thing would succeed? I think the answer historically has been no. So we moved from an induction to a councillor development program. Yes, it's not going to change everything. It's not going to improve everyone, but it starts to build capacity and capability in the institution. And I think with that, maybe we'll get somewhere. But with all that said, yes, a large majority of our plants aren't working. Infrastructure is in a crumbling state. A lot of terrible things are happening in our country. But my plea would be that we remember, in all of that accountability, we're dealing with people. And we want these same people to rise up and solve the problems. And some of them are going to work without getting paid, and we say they're not committed. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much for that very human insight. In a hypothetical scenario, let's say we are more compassionate, we believe and support our councillors. What would then be the steps that would enable local government to effectively manage water, to help address the infrastructure issues, to help address the corruption? So we have our councillors that are trained, they're now more capable, we have more regulation, more oversight. What are the actionable steps that you see from a local government perspective to directly address the current water scarcity problems, pollution problems, non-revenue water? How do you, in an idealistic scenario, see that playing out?
So I think the first thing that would happen is the people we would like for us to lead us would want to be councillors. Because we've already got a problem where we are not always selecting from the best. I was looking at the city of Joburg. The new ABSA CEO was once a councillor in the city of Joburg. How many of our councillors can become CEOs of banks?
Very well. Yeah.
So I think in that ideal situation, we start attracting the right people at a political level. That changes the dynamic in terms of the culture in the institution from an accountability and oversight perspective, because you now have more to choose from. Two, when that happens, you can now attract professionals back into the sector. We've got an exodus of professionals. I mean, you look at what's happening in KZN. I won't lie, I don't think my wife would be happy with me if I said I wanted to work in a municipality, looking at how many innocent people are getting shot and killed. So already, when we do recruitment, 80% of engineers aren't interested in working in the sector. We're already choosing from the jam. So immediately what happens there, we're able to attract the best and we're able to recruit the best. That gives us a fighting chance in terms of now getting to the technical things. Then what would happen in the technical things, I think sometimes we're over-regulated. So in many instances, municipal administrations want community or grassroots movement to get involved, but the regulations are so tight that they can't. I mean, to operate a borehole, you effectively need a process controller, and yet we're saying we want to involve more people into the system. So I think our regulation, while it's great, but we equate more rules with accountability and doing the right things. I think we perhaps need to introduce a little bit more flexibility without compromising the ideals, but have a little bit of a more flexible system that allows more innovation without obviously enabling corruption and more ideas to get into the room. Currently, if a municipality wanted to work with Empire Partner Foundation, they'll probably get a audit finding. How did we choose you? Why you? Da 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 da. Immediately, a person is not interested in innovating in that space. You want to be safe. So again, we can change the culture, and once the culture changes, there's this trickle-down effect that I think could happen. And last thing, there's a small thing we don't talk about, which says, our constitution says, national and provincial government must strengthen and capacitate local government. So my question to you is, if municipality X in the last 20 years has been failing, is it just them, or the ones who are supposed to strengthen and support them are also failing, but we have no accountability for them? So we've got this one horse that we're flogging here. Everyone's taking their shot, and then we're surprised when it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
Okay, I think this is a very interesting perspective, and it goes back to us as a citizenry taking ownership and accountability. I think as South Africans, we are extraordinarily expert at complaining. But more than that, I don't think we apply ourselves. Ideally, how would you see the citizenry involving themselves or supporting this this process of changing culture or holding provincial or national government accountable to the point of, we have a water issue, our municipality or our local government cannot solve it, or has historically proven not being able to solve it? Where do you see the citizens participating in their democracy to enable that?
So right now, the white paper discussion document is out for comment.
Okay.
I accept it perhaps wasn't publicized to everyone, but an active citizen would find that document and make inputs into what our municipalities should look like. Because we're sitting on the other side, right, wanting to consolidate. And the inputs are trickling in from the usual suspects because a lot of people have already given up. So I think a lot of what Furiel is speaking to is perhaps what we need to see more of. And I will say, in many instances, administrations and councillors demonize activists, but also activists can go a bit hard sometimes. So, you know, but I think she's touched on all of the things that we would love to see more of us do. Because again, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I look at those IDP, I'm like, guys, I don't have time for this thing. And I shouldn't, I work for Salga. And then I get upset when the priorities are wrong. So I think everything is there, but I don't know how, if I had the answers. If we can get people to believe in our democracy to a point where they actively participate and don't eliminate themselves, and then give us inputs sitting at national government on how we rebuild trust, because it's broken. If I break your trust, I can't be the same one that comes to you and says, this is how we're going to rebuild it. Listen carefully. That's condescending, right?
Okay. Dr. Furiel, I see that you have some thoughts on this question. I'd love your input.
No, it's true. I mean, I think there's so much that was said by both speakers, Nathan and Luba, that I just want to touch on a few things. But the IDP process, as much as we'd like people to participate in it, it's complex. I mean, have you seen that budget? It knocks you off your feet. So I think we have this other structure called Joburg Can, Water Can, this Joburg Can, and it's about simplifying it, because people forget that actually for the IDP, you can say, we need to tar our roads. You don't have to speak in the languages of that IDP, and that's what we need to get to people. So you have these wonderful kind of campaigns for elections and voting. We should have similar campaigns to say, just tell us what you want. You want a school, you want a park. As simple as that is what the IDP process can do. But people don't know it because it's so complex. Also, when you go, by the way, the last IDP one in my area, there was a big fight amongst the councillors.
Were you in?
No, I'm not a councillor. I wasn't even there. I was watching it online. On the data, I just wanted to mention that when we do our testing, we also train people to upload their results onto a map. So you can go onto our website, and it's Map My Water on our watercan.org website, and you can get a picture of what the quality of the water is across the country. So you may want to look at that. There are new amendments, which I think you forgot to mention, that DWS is coming up with amendments, that if now a municipality is not performing as they should in terms of water services, as a water service authority, the Department of Water and Sanitation can take that function away from them and kind of appoint a water service authority, which is going to happen. And I do agree with Luba that there are many municipalities that are hamstrung. They're trying to work. But if you don't have the resources or the support, it's very hard to get things done. Even here in Joburg, we fight, but really I must say that Joburg Water has some phenomenal engineers. And my worry is that, like, there's one person, I know her, and she's an engineer and she has an MBA, and I keep begging her, I'm like, do not go to the private sector. Do not go to the private sector. So it's that. And the issue of elections, you mentioned about all of us standing for elections, it's not the first person is saying it. In our communities, we have principals, we have religious leaders that are upstanding, that do the right thing. There are activists here for years. I see them sitting here that do the right thing. Those are the type of people we need to get involved in local government. And by the way, accountability is much more than what we say. When we say accountability, it's so much more than what we're saying. It's about transparency. It's also about the fact that, let's be honest, there are people who are not doing their jobs. And they know they're not doing their jobs. We cannot fire them. We need, and it's not only at a local government level, you're right, because all my time working on water in the city of Joburg, I've been dealing with the city and fighting with national and the city. Province has been hiding away, and you're right, they must own up as well for the kind of mess we're in right now, especially environmentally, because they have environmental oversight. So and the lack of trust. It's easy to say that municipalities are community, administration, and council. But I work with people that bang their doors of the municipality. They write letters. They do everything we say. Write the email. Talk to your ward councillor. Go to the municipality. For one issue, they'll get from pillar to post to wherever, and no one listens to them. They only get heard when they protest, block the roads, burn tires. And that is the language that our councillors and our local governments understand. We don't want to do that. It's the last resort. And so that there's no trust. There's just no trust between people and the municipalities. And all it needs is a little bit of respect and engagement. Just listen to people. There's a municipality, for example, that their community was up in arms because they weren't getting water. And they kept saying this municipality is not listening. We wrote an email and we had this online we had a response. Firstly, we were so shocked. And we had a response where they said, no, bring your testing kits, come and test, and let's discuss the results. It's just having those types of leadership that can change the situation. Openness, transparency, honesty, and get our municipalities working.
Thank you so much for that. I think that leads right back into what Nathan was saying earlier, that I think the key to all of this is the data and the education. And educating people on, as you say, in very layman's terms, on how to engage with local governments, to engage with their democracy, and engage with the processes or the regulators of our water and of our sanitation, and then collecting the data that would then take that education to become action. I'd like to now thank you all so much for your comments. I'd like to open the floor to
Don't we
any
have an
questions.
online guest?
Oh, is Tiani online? My apologies. We're going to hand over now to Tiani Chau. He is the Deputy Director of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Tiani, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes, good evening, colleagues. Hope you can hear me and see me. I hope you can hear me and see
We
me.
can see you now.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, colleagues. I wish I could have been there, but due to a bit of ill health, I could not attend physically, but I'm glad that I could join virtually. So it's an honor to be here and to join such a very great panelist of speakers talking about what issues that are connecting a bit to our country. I've worked with some of the colleagues that are sitting there, so I'm quite happy to see them. It would have been better for me to see them physically. So good evening, colleagues. As already stated, my name is Tiani Chau, and I'm with the Department of Water and Sanitation. I'm looking at Transboundary Water Corporation in the department. Now, looking at the topic that we've been talking about today, the issues of water in the country. I like to take an angle of partnerships. Partnerships are quite important, and they help us actually achieve some of our water obligations, as well as address some of our challenges. As some of you may know, and hopefully all of you should know, that South Africa is actually a water scarce country. So our rainfall that we receive is half of that of the world, but at the same time, we use more water than the rest of the world. So we have an issue around water behavior as well, but I'll touch on that a bit later. South Africa receives 45% of its water from what we call shared water courses, which is basically transboundary water basins or rivers. As some of you may know, South Africa shares rivers with a number of countries, but I'll just name a few. For example, the Orange River, the Limpopo River, the Maputo River. So we get some for water from those particular river basins. Now, we engage in partnerships in order to do a number of things. One, of course, as stated already, or directly, the issues of leveraging resources. This could be, in this case, issues of water, issues of expertise, finance, to actually undertake joint projects as well and activities to address some of water challenges, including innovations and also development of technologies, but also generating new knowledge, but also to strengthen relations and partnerships, so what we may refer to as water diplomacy. So using water as means of strengthening partnerships. And a great example of that is perhaps South Africa is partnering and working with countries such as Lesotho through some of the projects that we have, such as the Lesotho Water Highlands Project, but also countries such as Mozambique, Eswatini, Namibia. We work with these countries in order to share equitably water resources. So it's not just the rain that you see and the groundwater, but all of these things also come from the rivers that we share with partner countries. Now, also undertake partnerships in order to enhance our knowledge and expertise, and also to actually look at and also undertake joint programs and projects, as stated already. Now, where does the issue of sharing water come from, or the issues of what governs that? We have a number of laws, and at the international level, there's something called the Conventional Law of Non-Navigational Uses of International Water Uses. And in South Africa, or rather in SADC, we have something called the Shared Protocol on Shared Water Courses. So now these are laws or treaties that help us to share water amongst partner countries. Now, this 45% of water that I'm referring to, actually, it's been estimated, approximated that around about that water contributes almost 8% of our GDP. So it's not just the water that we're sharing, but it has socio-economic development derivatives, as well as beneficiation, because it contributes to the economy. I just want to show two slides, if applicable, just so that you can get an idea of the value of water that we're getting from the partner countries. If you just allow me quickly, colleagues.
With pleasure, please go ahead.
Thank you. I hope you can see it.
Here's the budget.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
I hope you can see it. As it's sharing on my side, but if you're not seeing it, I think I'll just proceed and give you.
Unfortunately, we aren't
what
seeing
it
it.
There we go.
There we go.
No, all right, fantastic.
Could we maybe
apologies
get
on
that
that.
projected onto one of these? Is it possible? No. Okay, if you could just walk us through the screen. Not all of us
let
are
me
able
do
to
that.
see it here, Tiani.
No, that's fine. It's just 2 slides that I want to actually reflect on. Now, we have, as I mentioned, that we have these 4 rivers that we are sharing with partner countries, 6 of them in South Africa. Now, those are basically the 4 countries I've mentioned, Lesotho, Mozambique, Namibia, Botswana, as well as Zimbabwe and Eswatini, the Kingdom of Eswatini. We share rivers with these partner countries, and from that we have what we call equitable sharing of water resources. Now, these rivers are managed by what we call commissions. So these are water cost commissions, namely INMACOM, ORESACOM, LIMCOM, as well as COBWA. Those are the main commissions that are dealing with the equitable sharing of water. For example, from one of the river basins, the Orange River, for example, South Africa received quite a lot of water, trillions of liters of water, that approximated around about, close to around about 19 billion rands. So that's a number, that's how much water we are receiving from these particular countries. And as a contribution, we have to put in some money into the commissions for them to operate, to do the operations. But the commissions themselves also seek grants in order to actually operate the rivers themselves in terms of operations. Now, this is looking at aspects of water quality, looking at issues of river flows and e-flows, looking at issues of pollution and how to mitigate against that. So they work with a number of organizations, your GIZs, your UNDP, your philanthropic organizations, including the European Commission. So those organizations that they work with actually give them grants in order to do scientific operations as well as research activities in order to better manage the river basins, but also inform governments on how to operate and how to plan, as well as how to share the water between themselves, as well as how to manage the river basins. So they actually advise governments on how to use the waters from the river basins. So these are some of the aspects that this water commissions are involved in. I won't go through all the river basins, but it's actually millions of cubic meters that we're receiving. For example, the DIMCOM receives around about 68, and then from the INMACOM receive also millions of water. So let me stop sharing there. And then just reflect on these issues of partnerships. The partnerships that we are engaged in also serve to actually serve as soft regulators of how we manage our water resources. For example, the issue of citizen science, and Furiel can attest to this. There's been a number of partnership activities that have been established in associations such as the Citizen Science Southern Africa Association, that is also being used to actually look at some of the water challenges and to actually have people and citizens themselves being involved in the monitoring of rivers. Now, by doing so, you actually start having soft regulation, so people take ownership of the rivers themselves and actually ensure that we don't pollute. People don't just go and wash their clothes and straw acids and fecal on the rivers, but we take ownership, and that's a sort of soft regulation. So there are a number of organizations that we are involved in that help us manage as well as share water, but also at a physical level as well as scientific level. At a political level in Africa, maybe as a parting shot, in Africa, at a political level, there is what is called AMCA, which is the African Ministers' Council on Water. Now, this is a political head of political organization that is under the African Union that actually meets on an annual basis to discuss some of the continental water challenges, as well as what to be done about those challenges and how to address some of those challenges. Now, some of those aspects as well as outputs emitting from those meetings translated downwards, and they translate to how we have to implement and actually work together amongst partner countries in order to resolve these issues of water and sanitation as well. And lastly, talking about these issues of partnerships as well as resources, there are one of the challenging aspects that we're having from this is the implementation of scientific outputs that are emanating from research activities. And there's a reason, a number of reasons for that. This may be also issues of how our organizations are set up, especially the issues of supply chain, on the adoption of technologies and innovations. Luba can speak much more about that. He knows very well the challenges involved in that. So these are some of the challenges that we're having, the proliferation of that knowledge that has been created, as well as uptake, its use. They have challenges on how to actually go about implementing that. If we can find and resolve those some of those challenges, the issues of water leaks, the issues of addressing water-related climate change challenges, as well as pollution, emerging water contaminants can then start being resolved, so that we have better water quality that may serve our people from here on until the future. So the most important aspect for the department its objective, the department, of course, is to manage the water resources of the country, as well as to provide the water for the citizens and inhabitants for the country, not just only for now, but also conserve this for the future and for the future generations. So there's a multiple effects that are involved in water cooperation and water diplomacy and partnerships. There's so many. And maybe just mention one more. For example, South Africa is one of the countries that is part of the European Commission in terms of projects called Fourm, which is actually resulting from an agreement that was signed by South Africa and the EU in terms of the TDC, I think it's called the Trade Cooperation Agreement, but also the work that's been done by the DSI, Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, in relation to how we cooperate with the European Commission when it comes to scientific endeavors. And we were lucky, I think that WRC was involved in that in terms of implementing international research activities that will look at how to resolve some of the more pertinent water challenges. So now all these things tie back to issues of water cooperation at a scientific level, at a cooperation level, at a transfer, as well as sharing of water level. So all these things talk together, and strengthening of those partnerships, not only international, but also nationally, partners such as SAGA, your local, your DPM, COPTA, and many other local beneficiaries, as well as partnerships and government departments. This will help us in order to augment these issues of water challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiani, for that overview on exactly where we get or our shared water resources and how you manage, or the department manages, those partnerships. You mentioned something very interesting about the revenue or the commercial aspect of this water that's coming in. And would it then not follow logically that those that are able to commercialize the water source are then the custodians to keep it clean or to protect those sources? How do you then encourage ownership of communities or of the locals, be it in South Africa or in our partnering countries, to then share that custodianship? Obviously, because we are consuming that water, but it's a paid service. So how do you then share that responsibility or custodianship, or encourage your citizenry to take it up?
Oh, thanks, Chair. One of the key things I think one of the key challenges that we're facing as a country is this issue of water behavior and water accounting. Most of our, and I'm taking a bit of a long run to answering a question, but I'll connect it. One of the key problems that most people don't understand, that water has a cost, it's not free. When you get water from a tap, it has to be purified, it has to be recirculated. There's a number of processes that go into the process of actually providing a water service. But how we are behaving as a country, especially in the areas that what we may call townships, we have this idea that water is free. Water is not free, it costs money, and nobody can talk to that very much. It costs money. Now, the government, of course, provides for around about 6,000 liters per month for ignorant persons, if you can't, so that we augment and manage that. Now, the aspects that are dealing with this aspect is that, rather, one of the things that we have to do is that we have to teach people that water is not free and that water has a cost. So one way of doing this is that we have to work with these organizations, businesses that are actually using a lot of water as part of citizen science, as part of water education, to actually assist them, and they must know that, that the water that they are spending, that they're using, has a cost, and that they must work with communities to teach them about that particular cost of water. But they also must actually invest in research and development in order to make sure that the water that they're using themselves, they replenish. There are programs that Pepsi Colas, Repenicans, and so on are working or trying to work with the government, because they have to actually replenish the water that they're using in terms of wastewater services. So we have to work with all these organizations that are using a lot of water in order to them to understand that they have to give back to the community and give back to the environment what they've used. So these are some of the processes in which we can work together with. But also, I would pray and I would actually urge that this major multilateral organizations must put more effort into water education and to water research and development, as well as implementation of new novel technologies that deal with water services, water provision, as well as water conservation.
Thank you, Tiani. I think that from all of our panelists, we see a lot of overlap in terms of what is needed to move forward, being your data, water education, and I think a change of culture, both as how we treat our regulators of our water and our custodians of our water, and within our own behaviors, as Tiani rightly said. Do we have any questions? We'll now open up the floor to questions. Do we have any questions? Okay, we'll start here and then we'll move to the back.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ntobeko Mkhonza. I have a question with regards to the data conversation. Dr. Nathan rightfully highlighted the fact that the water... Great, Doctor, now. Take it. Sorry. So you highlighted the fact that the water sector is quite regulated. And from my limited understanding, some of these, especially for industry, some of these water use licenses specify that there needs to be monitoring of water quality, use, and all of this. For some of them, it's biannually, and even specify that the person that's monitoring needs to have these qualifications and so on and so on. Are we not able to tap into some of this data that they get? Because I think the issue of data and consistent data and data that has integrity is always an issue. But where I used to work in my past life, that's what I used to do. So I didn't understand when people are saying we don't have data, and I'm like, but I do this all the time. So how come, so where do we lose each other in terms of accessing the data? So, but I just do know that I was only monitoring, so I don't know what happens on the other side of it, and that's what I want to understand, if anybody has a response for that. Thanks.
So I think that speaks to, as Mr. Marimutu was saying, about the decentralization of where that data is stored and how it's accessed. But if you'd like to address that question.
Yeah, no, I'll just give you a very simple example. So we won't mention the departments in government, but I think that if you take the number of municipalities and water authorities, or water service, I forget the name of it, what is it?
Yeah, water service authorities.
WSAs, and there's WSPs and a lot of Ws. But we just need to take water, so I would always start at the utilization level and wastage level, and then go backwards. Sometimes we tend to start at the source. And if you look at, say, how much water is consumed this hour, it's hard to have that stat. But there are disaggregated information sets, which I agree with you. And if you go back and say, for this week, who used what water? So that's why I asked a simple, non-academic question about a washing machine. It was a pun meant to show you that we take that for granted. But does South Africa have, in my opinion, a national water database or activity database? I've not seen it yet. In order to arrive at that, we need to aggregate and collect all these data sets. The data can be anonymized, so it's we can remove the issue of data privacy by anonymizing data. But when you have a live information, you're able to solve many, many more issues. In South Africa today, you find some sectors where data is starting to be collated, we solve issues faster. So yes, data is generated in many, many areas, but in some areas we don't have collection of it. Let's look at revenue billed water, and let's take the Eastern Cape as an example. Again, I won't mention some of the munis, but most of the munis give an allowance beside indigent. So indigent, we understand, is a qualification for indigent, and that needs to be recorded all the way through for the water supply they get for that area. Then there's the issue of people that have postpaid. Now, when I give you postpaid water, I'm actually giving you credit. But I've not done the assessment of whether you can afford the amount of water you're going to consume. Mm. It's a live example that I've solved now we've tried to assist to solve. And when I proposed the argument that you're giving credit, it was not seen that way. So you fully know I'm going to give credit to somebody who's not going to pay me. And the person says, yeah, I can't afford it. So next month we have this fight that continues. So that data tells us that at the last level, we don't have last mile data. It does exist. But many of the munis, and it's quite correct, that they don't have systems, there's demotivation, we don't want to get into the political diatribe of what causes them. But if we set out to find the data and collect them, you will solve issues. That's my message. Do you have data? Yes. Does the Department of WS have some data? So Statistics SA, maybe just to help us a little bit, tends to do census, and these are old data. And when you try to extrapolate data from Stats SA, it's hard because we didn't know the formulation of the databases, and they outdate very fast. And that's where that's why I said I use the example of we have 7,000 informal settlements, and they accommodate about 7 million people, roughly. If the number could be larger, but let's not scare each other. We don't know how much water they're tapping into. We lose that track because the systems don't exist. But we know we can do that. So I think when you start to have that, you're quite correct. You solve many, many more issues because decisions are being made today on an uninformed basis. It's like, let's say GIBS as an example, no offense to GIBS, and today they have to make a decision. Then it's an informed decision you want to make. Well, I guess in our own lives or in our own organizations, we're trying to make informed decisions, right? If you have so much in your pocket, you decide where I shop. I don't think you get to the till, you fill the trolley and then rock up at the till and say, well, sure, I've got a problem, and you go back, right? So logically, we tend to make informed decisions when it comes to our persona, our persons. But when we look at municipal issues for Joburg Water or large metros or small munis, they don't rely on, because it's not part of our culture yet. And we have to push this issue of saying we want to make informed decisions. It's not derogatory, it's not fighting with anybody, but sensibly, like, the app for weather, I don't know who uses it, but generally I see a lot of people before they leave home, they want to check what the weather is. So you tend to have a sense of what's before me, right? So there are a lot of things in our personal lives we tend to make from an informed decision perspective. But when we look at organizations and societies, we're not making those decisions from an informed basis. The data might be old, so that's what I think. It's a long journey, but we have seen the benefit of getting people to encourage it. Are we willing to co-sponsor the platform? Yes. Because we're an NPO, are we willing to help put the data together? Yes. Because it's a societal benefit, but we are not waiting to say who will sponsor it. I'm saying we are willing to figure out with our young developers to do things that will allow us. I've done the same in other parts of our discourse into Africa, and we found that, it's quite correct, that we share water resources, but these are structural issues. But we don't know today how much we've consumed, how much we've lost. Dams get polluted, river streams get polluted, who knows what causes it. If the Muni in the Val doesn't have the money, we can't leave it. So how do you make a decision as a province? Our national. So that's where I think comes to the issue of we have to make informed decisions. And I think to do that, you are quite correct. Should we call to build a national database collectively amongst academics and students? It can be done. It's not impossible. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's move to the gentleman back there who had a question. Yes, you, sir. Yes. If you could just press your mic.
Democracy gives me my voice.
Say again.
Democracy gives you a voice.
I have to agree with Furiel in terms of the language being used is often too academic for people to understand. I recently watched a documentary on water usage in Cape Town, and the most water usage is in affluent suburbs. There was a water restriction in Cape Town, and we actually watched how a household were using 2 syringes to brush their teeth, 2 syringes of water. I had to ask myself, can I brush my teeth with 2 syringes? But the stats that come out keep on telling us how many liters we should use, how much we shouldn't use. We need to get back to letting people understand from a practical perspective what that means. I have a question for the gentleman from Sauga as well, from the water department. I keep on hearing the thing of we in a partnership and citizens should take responsibility, and I think the Constitution of South Africa specifically says that we all as citizens must be responsible. I feel that a lot of times citizens are responsible in that they follow the processes that are defined within municipalities, which say that if you see a water leak, report it. I am not sure what more you want citizens to do, because if you try and fix a pipe, somebody's going to tell you you're interfering with infrastructure. The other thing is I'm dealing with a case in Pageview, Mayfair, where 12 units have been cut, no water, because a bulk meter has been removed. It's strange that some of the ex-employees from the Joburg municipality, the Joburg Water specifically, have encouraged people in the Mayfair area to go borehole route without actually providing real scientific proof on whether boreholes are the real solution, which we know is not the solution. The other thing is you talk about incentives and motivating the workforce. No, I reported a water leak in my area, and I see a water truck there all the time. I think employees should be proud of where they work, and when they see water leaks, they should make sure that they fix them. I can't keep on logging the same call when I have a truck in my area without doing that. And my last point is on staff and training. When I did the implementation of the SAP system at the city of Joburg, which cost 800 million rand, none of the staff were trained sufficiently to operate the system. But secondly, those that were going on courses in 2008 at a cost of 60,000 rand per course are no longer at the city because they didn't sign any back-to-back agreements to say that they would be retained by the city for 5 years. So I implore Salga to have a look at that. But when you start to train and use taxpayer money to train employees, that they give us back our value for what we invest in them.
Thank you so much. Before I hand over to Mr. Luyaba and Mr. Chauke, I think just in response to your last 2 points, those are opportunities where technology can definitely come into play, and I think already is doing so. At EPF, the concept that was recently completed with Rand Water, and it's the generative AI project where we had trained an AI agent to both learn tacit and explicit knowledge. So all of your recorded knowledge, but all of the experience that you had from your technicians, to enable technicians to then, on the job, be able to handle a much larger variety of problems or solve a larger variety of solutions than they ordinarily would have been able to just from their training. So I think that's a really big opportunity for technology to fill that gap, because the metrics at which we measure, obviously there are standard metrics that we measure how well somebody needs to be trained, but with the aging water infrastructure and other such problems, I think technology is definitely the route to solving that. And same with looking at how to place your technicians or how to better manage workforces. It's another opportunity for technology. So like Mr. Luyaba said, there's obviously a lack of passion, motivation within local government, which would usually drive these types of quality assurances or drive that things are done in the best process as according to the bureaucracy. But with the lack of that, that's also an opportunity for us to now use other tools, digital tools, where while we're changing the culture, we can still solve these. But back to the first two points, Mr. Luyaba, I'm not sure if you'd like to tackle them first.
Yeah, I think on the language, that's definitely feedback to be taken. I think administrations can do more to work with other organizations to make the language in which they communicate more accessible. One of the things we've been looking at SAGA is how do we help municipalities to be more collaborative in the work that they do. I'm not going to lie to you and say we've solved that. Sadly, we haven't. So it's a problem that stands and something noted that we need to look at. Also on citizens, I mean, personally, we're not recording anymore, right? I was sitting with a leak for 9 months. I won't say where I live. I know the MD, I know the COO, and obviously you don't want to abuse. And I was trying to figure out what is going wrong. We logged maybe something 150 calls. I don't have an answer. I don't know. I'd be lying to you if I said SAGA is going to solve that. We don't know how. But what I will say is we welcome ideas and suggestions on how SAGA can better play its role. Because I think the mistake government sometimes makes is to get into a defensive mode and to pretend I have answers. I don't. If that's disappointing, I apologize wholeheartedly. And I would love to hear how you think as a citizen we can do better. Because I think that's a government that cares, is responsive, and can actually move forward. And then the staff and training, also very tricky. Because people have rights. If people are in a condition where they feel they're not stimulated, they're not growing, or someone's offering them a bigger salary, you can't keep them. It's the problem that everyone faces. But my view on that is if we train enough people in critical mass, it won't matter because we'll be able to, as people move around, we'll get competent people. The problem we have is when skills leave the country, one, or stay within the country but choose to consult versus working in the state. Again, we've not figured out how to solve that, but we can't pretend people don't have a reason to leave, they do. But a question I have sometimes, not about that particular company you mentioned, is should we be spending the exorbitant sums of money that we're spending on those systems? But municipalities aren't the ones who came up with M-SCORE. I'll leave it there.
Mr. Choke, I'm not sure if you'd also like to respond on these questions. Is he still with
Thanks.
us?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Chair. I think the issue of technology is definitely one that we have to take seriously and find better ways of implementing new technological advances in order to solve these water challenges. South Africa has a number of centers of excellence that have really come up with great technologies and also heard about the concept note that you've proposed. For example, we have the Water Research Commission in South Africa that deals with issues of water research, innovation and development. We have the Water Center at the CSIR, and we have a number of water centers from various universities, including UKZN. A number of technologies and solutions being created. The problem is to implement those solutions within the municipalities and within the different water service authorities. It becomes a challenge through two issues. One, the issues of the SCM processes that requires tendering. That has to be changed. I know that there's already processes that are already underway in partnership with also the SABS in terms of standards to actually see or find a solution how you can actually implement some of the solutions. And so with that process being implemented, should be rolled out hopefully soon, we'll be able to then include or use new technologies also to actually manage water challenges. The issues of capacity, it is really a great challenge, both in terms of retention, but also in terms of motivation. For example, if you're a consultant, you work in an engineering firm, the salary scales of an engineering firm vis-a-vis those of the government are not the same. Even if you're implementing the OSD sort of exercise, you might find that the private sector may be paying more. And also the skill set that we have internationally are quite demanded. So what I would also agree with regards that, if you have mass education, especially at ground level, and have this strong citizen science society, that would really take on people that are complacent within the municipalities to actually act and also advise them on what to do, on how or where to get some of these innovations, technologies, as well as what they expect from them. And informed citizenry is a very strong citizenry. So would definitely say and agree to say we have to actually strengthen that citizenship participation as well as science aspect of it, and the implementation of technologies. It is quite expensive. And maybe as a parting shot, the number of technologies South Africa has actually lost and went outside of the country that were developed here due to a lack of implementation and not protected them strongly. I think the famous one is, it's the lithium-ion battery that you're using on your cell phone. So it's developed here in the country through the CSR, but the beneficiation of it is now with American companies and instead of South Africa. So we have to be quite strategic and innovative, as well as, quick on the mark when implement these technologies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For the sake of time, we will take one, two, three more questions.
All questions.
Okay, so we'll start with you at the back, yes.
Thank you so much. I'm Hasna Tizewi, the Economic and Cultural Counselor of the Embassy of Tunisia. First of all, thank you for inviting me for this event. Actually, I don't have questions, but I want to share some remarks. Indeed, the problem of water is becoming more and more regional, actually African and international. And I can share with you this. My first posting was in Romania in 2014. And on that time in Tunisia, the majority of population were drinking tap water. And I went to Romania and asked my colleague, what about the tap water? And he said, no, don't drink tap water, because in Bucharest, the infrastructure system is a bit old, there is no maintenance, so please drink bottled water. And then I went back to Tunis for 2 years in 2019, and I was really surprised to find out that everyone in Tunisia started drinking bottled water, even in the area where the water quality is really good, and they think it's becoming like a social trend. They say it's healthier, and I think here the lack of awareness is really, a problem. It's really challenging. I would like to share with you this about the lack of awareness. During the last 10 years in Tunisia, we did have like 7 years of a very strong drought. And during the first 2 years, no one was speaking about it in Tunisia except the farmers. And when people raise it, especially in the cities, they raise it when they speak about the increasing of prices of vegetable, of meat. So the problem here, again, is not water, but the prices increase. And then I think starting the 5th year of the draft, the government starts practicing load shedding, water load shedding. And here everyone was speaking about water. And everyone was speaking why we didn't make the maintenance of that dam, or why we didn't imply that project of using the water. So it became really an issue of national interest. So then this year, you know, we have opposite season. In Tunisia, this year we had in winter, which is in our, it's Tunisia, December, January, February, we had a good season of rain. And guess what? Like the information about the filling of dams in Tunisia, it became a permanent part of our news. So everywhere, every person is speaking, okay, last night they said we had 35% increase. The next 2 weeks, it's 36, yeah, it's good, yeah. So it became really, why? Because people, they felt it. I mean, people in the cities, I'm not speaking about farms, people, they felt it in their daily lives. And here, I think raising awareness is a very important, a very important tool to address the problem. And also sharing experience, because this is not a South African problem. I mean, Tunisia is the northeast part of Africa, but we share the same problem. Maybe the challenges are different, like in South Africa, maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe the main problem is pollution. But in Tunisia, like, it's climate change, the first, I think, our first challenging problem about water. And here, and I'm gonna speak under the supervision of my colleague here from the Department of Science and Innovation. We, in the embassy, we work close with them, and we were thinking about starting a series of collaboration like program with them. And we were thinking in the embassy with which topic to start. And like, we had a lot, we had a list, I think, I prepared a list, I remember, like technology, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and so on, renewable energy. But then we said, let's start with something vital, something fundamental for Tunisia and South Africa both, and we said water. So, and we are having an event on June 19, and I welcome you all to join us as invitees or as speakers in our event. So if you want to know more, I'm here and my colleague is here. You are welcome. Thank you so much.
Is it in Tunis?
Yes.
Oh, we're going there.
In Pretoria. No, in Pretoria, but next time in Tunis. No, it's close by.
I thought I had a free ticket, you know.
Next year, inshallah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, sharing those insights. To you, ma'am, at the back.
Thank you for the opportunity. So mine is also a comment, and I'll start with one that is very close to my heart on one of the questions that was raised earlier on, how do we get young people involved? So we get young people involved by speaking a language they understand. And that, you know, by language does not necessarily mean language alone. It means accessibility to such sessions. Right? Because right now, all of us sitting here, we are preaching to the converted. And the reality is that all of us sitting here, we don't even know the impact of not having water. All of us sitting here, when we get to our houses, we are going into a hot shower. Tomorrow being a holiday, we are going to switch on that washing machine that actually uses about 150 liters tomorrow, right? So let us move such sessions to Hammanskraal, to Sebokeng, to Alexander. Then that is where we are going to feel the impact, right? Because here, we are not feeling no impact. Yes, we are having a lovely discussion, but when we leave here, some of us are going to have a glass of wine, and we call it a night. And when it comes, and then just on a lighter note, to my two leaders from Salga and Ntate Chauke, with regards to water not being free, tell that to your politicians. That one, don't put it on our lap. We are not entering there. your politician, our politicians, when they go to community halls, it's with the municipality elections coming up, when they speak to their constituency, that is where education equally starts. But when a leader stands there and say, vote for me because water is free, or I'll give you free water, that does not assist the situation at all. It breeds that sense of entitlement. And I always say, I challenge people around me to say, we also must speak to our own families. My family, no, you don't brush your teeth with the tap running. You don't do that, right? My last point to my good self from Salga with regards to, attracting skills, and retaining them in the public sector. I personally feel we need a broader, a diverse audience for that. There's this unfortunate culture, right, where, blue-collar workers have been demonized, right? So there's this thing where, and you made a good example to say, to operate a borehole as an example, you need your water process technologists, right? But unfortunately, those kind of professions, the dry and wet trades, nobody, not even any school-going child today, if you had to ask them, what would you like to be? None of them will tell you that. Because if you look between the media, all the sectors, who is taken seriously is those that can rah nicely. And yes, you're quite right. When it's time to recruit, you literally have to choose from somebody who was desperate and needing employment, and then they saw an advert, or the ward councillor came to say, hey, we are training process controllers, come. And that's what, honestly, that is what is happening. We no longer have, civil servants that are passionate, that actually would die for the job that they're doing. We no longer have that. And that, again, is certainly not assisting. And unfortunately, yes, it speaks to, all of us now working in silos. Everybody now starts looking after their own corner. Right? And my good doctor, with Watercan, I love what you guys do, but rubbishing the efforts that some of the state-owned that are trying to do, and Rainwater specifically, right? Let's work together. I'm not working for Rainwater, but I'm just saying, let's work together. And I'll give one last example. In December, Rainwater had to do a pipe maintenance. There was an article, very extensive article, that was just spreading the fear. And I was looking at that article and I'm like, but this is unnecessary. And I challenge people around me, because people were complaining to say, how dare you, how do you maintain your pipes in December? And I'm like, as people, you must decide what you want. Do you want the ESCOM approach, where you're just sitting about to start cooking and it's dark? Or would you like an approach where you are communicated to? 9 days to go, 8 days to go. We are going to be maintaining certain pipes, therefore you are not going to have water for so long. But it does not assist when then there's other organizations that are spreading the panic and the fear. Oh my gosh, you are only going to have water in 2025. I would panic if somebody tells me I'm not going to have water for 2-3 weeks. That is not necessary. So yes, it divides us as a nation. So let's work together. It's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We had another question here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity given. My name is Primrose. I'm a social researcher. Firstly, I have a question that needs advice. In my community, there's a hole that comes out water. Like, I realized this recently because I asked, like, why are they not fixing this pipe? And some guy said, no, it's not a pipe. The water is coming out of the ground. And I'm like, and it has been going on for years since I was a child, because I'm asking this now as an adult. And when I noticed, I'm like, what is the municipality doing, like, to preserve this water? Because it's clean water. Like, what are they doing? Because I'm from Gwamtlanga, Tembisile municipality. We literally outsource every water that we are using from our nearby municipalities. We don't, in fact, have a water supply within the municipality. We buy, and yet I'm like saying, this can, if it has been supplying water since I was younger, I mean, I think then it means it can supply half of the municipality or quarter, whatever that is. So my question is, how do I go about with the hole that I've seen? Where do I report it? Is there a way I can assist in terms of preserving that water? Because I think it's one of the waters we could be using on our daily basis. And my comment is, I think we can sit here, I'm with my sister there to say, preserve the water. For us to make an impact, we need to be collaborating with the actual people that are using the water, the communities, because these people, they believe in free things. Like literally when they said service delivery, they thought, I'm a born free, you know. Being a child of the democracy, it's more if we were told everything was going to be delivered to us. Like everything, they're going to give it to us. Like everything, even the jobs, we accept them to knock at our doors and say, Coco, South Africa, here's the jobs. And the community is not interested in being active in anything. In fact, communities are not interested. They're just interested in benefiting as long as we get the water. Recently in the municipality, the mayor announced that people need to start paying for services. As I'm speaking with you now, like the communities are angry. They say, oh, where is it coming from? Because we are not paying. Not paying, only businesses are paying for services in Temple City. So now they're enforcing the policies to say also the community must pay for water. It's more of people don't know that water, as we've been saying, that it's not for free. It has to be sold. I think the next election campaign, our government, our politicians need to stop telling people that we're going to be giving you things for free. They need to be saying that this is how much money you should be paying for water. In their election campaigns, they should be telling people that water needs to be paid, services need to be paid, except them telling them that they should vote for them because there's so much controversy around votes and the actual services. They don't give us the services because we have this level of expectations when they say everything is for free, water is free, electricity, you buy, education is for free. Like we expect so much everything for free without us being active citizens. It's more of the government should change their scenario of saying, we will deliver things for you so that we raise active citizens within our communities. But most young people, they should start being active within the system. They know they expect everything to be delivered into the doorsteps. The bigger thing that we need to be doing is the very way they did HIV, the project, the activation campaigns. We need an activation campaign on water. These young kids need to know that there's a scarcity of water. Water is so much scarce because I don't think communities know that water is scarce. They're literally blaming the government. They now sitting to say, yeah, the government is not giving us water. Well, they took money for water, but they are wasting so much water and not willing to be active within the system of either saving water or saving the country, saving the economy on its own. Because, in fact, the fact that we pay for so much for people to get water, it shows that water is playing such a crucial role with
the entitlements and culture that we've fallen into.
Thank you. That's a hard one. But just on the first point on Rand Water's maintenance last year, just to say that WaterCan was one of the few organizations that was trying to say that maintenance is necessary. And to alleviate the concerns, we actually had a site visit with Rand Water, which was fantastic. And the work that was happening, we weren't allowed to take photographs, of course, because of the but we wrote a report as civil society, and it was 2 engineers and myself. And it was, so that's the kind of thing we do. So we don't just, maintenance for me is key. And yes, there were a lot of scaremongers that we're never going to have water until forever and all of those things. And we did counter that. That was, people don't even understand the difference and the different roles between Rand water and Joburg water. So we have to keep saying, no, Rand water is that, Joburg water. But having said that, we do have to at some times call people out because we don't get the right information. So we do that, but it's doing it, we engage with them, and also we work closely with Rand Water and Joburg Water. For a long time, the city of Joburg was the biggest obstacle. On the issue of, firstly, I think groundwater is a complex issue in Gauteng, and generally, you should not be drinking your groundwater unless you have the processes in place, which is expensive. What you can do with that, with groundwater, is you can cultivate, you can water, etc. But even then, you have to make sure there's no heavy metals in it. And that's costly. So that's the kind of, and in terms of, I can't remember who said about municipalities saying drop a ball. It is irresponsible. It is expensive. And they're not getting the data. So do they know, do we know how much groundwater we have? And it's not constant. It's not just sitting there waiting for us. It moves, right? And there's acid mine drainage in Joburg as well. So there's a whole range of complexities around borehole water. Also, there's legislation on borehole water. You can't just take out as much as you want. The minute you take out more than you need for household consumption, you need to apply for a water use license. So it's complex, and I think people forget that. So that's the complexity. But I think that in terms of, the issue there is that it's groundwater, and it just sounds like the water table has, when it rains, it probably comes up much more, and that's the challenge. I'm not sure what exactly the question is directly.
So, sorry, you said your name was? Primrose, yes. So Primrose was asking, is there a way for them to create a process or formalize the usage of that water, or how to make it safe, protected, accessible?
So that's the problem, is that if it's groundwater, you have to follow the process of actually putting in the mechanism to pump it out properly, because otherwise you're just going to have a lot of nonsense water. But also, cleaning that water, you have to get it tested. And you have to get it tested by an accredited laboratory to tell you whether it's at drinking water quality standards. And the chances are it's not. And then you have to put into processes, how do you make it drinking water quality? And that is expensive. So you need to actually speak to the municipality, because say for example, they've done it for schools or clinics where the municipality can drop a ball and put in place stuff, or they'll drop the ball and say, you can't drink it, you can only use it for other things.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we have come to a close of our session. I would like to sincerely thank all of our panelists. Thank you, Mr. Tiani, for joining us online. Thank you, Dr. Adams. Thank you, Mr. Marimutu and Mr. Luyaba. It was a very insightful session, and I think I invite everybody here and everybody who has joined us online to please engage with WaterCan and other civil society water activists to see how we can get involved, engage EPF on creating the database, welcoming other co-sponsors to create a centralized water database and research database, and to also let's relook at how we can reignite our passion for local government and have a more human approach so that we can get the right people into the right positions that will then put in the processes, put in the technology that can have actionable, sustainable results. So thank you all for joining us, and we shall see you at our next problem-solving methodology session. Have a wonderful evening. Drive safe. Oh, on your way out, please help yourselves to some food and refreshments.